morning. I'm super excited to be here with you all. I really enjoyed CryptoFest last year, and it's been a great event this year. I want to say a quick congratulations to Sonia and her team for pulling off another incredible event. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Devon, and I'm the co-founder of a company called Linum Labs. It's actually been around for about 8 years now, so we've kind of been here with the ups and the downs of the market. We've seen a lot of trends. We've built a lot of projects in the space. And so today, I'm very excited to actually talk to you today about the future of NFTs, trends, innovations, and what lies ahead, because a lot of my experience and my knowledge on this specific subject has come through my own very bad NFT trading. I don't know if any of you did the NFT flipping thing, but my portfolio tanked while I was at Africa Burn 1 year, so I'm not actually the biggest fan. And yeah, a couple of the projects that we've also built in this space. So I have some practical hands-on experience building projects in this space, and I'm excited to tell you a little bit more about them. Is this the clicker? Which way? All right, so I just want to start off with getting into just a quick recap of like what are NFTs. Can I get a quick show of hands from the audience who actually knows what NFTs are? I'm sure most of you have heard about them or know about them, so I'm not going to go too deep into it. But NFTs are non-fungible tokens, and it's always kind of funny to me to refer to something in our industry as non-something else. Let's just talk about them as digital assets, maybe. Because in the NFT space, basically non-fungible means that it's not divisible by, like, you can't swap it out with another thing. So a dollar, for example, is fungible because you can swap it out for another dollar. Nobody's going to give a damn. Ooh, I need to not swear. And then, for example, an apple. You can trade an apple for an apple. It doesn't really matter. But you can't trade, like, someone's house for another house, and this is consensual. But they're just, the values are different, the property rights are different, the ownership is different. So it's just like, for example, a really good example of NFTs would be Pokemon cards or trading cards, something that's collectible, something where you can prove the ownership, somewhere where it's unique. So those are kind of all just like the basics of NFTs. I'm not going to dive too deep into it because you guys do already have an understanding. And what I'm going to be covering in my presentation today is, are they still relevant? Are we still using them? The bubble has kind of popped, so well, what next? And that's kind of where we're going to go from here. So diving into it, let's actually start with a little bit about the history and the evolution of NFTs. So NFTs actually came up as a concept as early as 2012, 2013 with the release of colored coins. Sorry, I talk really fast, so I'm going to try and slow it down a little bit. So NFTs first popped up with colored coins in 2013, which was when the first time really that NFTs were given unique properties, basically. So they started becoming a little bit less divisible by one another, not the same thing. And then they really became popular in 2017 with the emergence of CryptoKitties, which was one of my favorite use cases. Actually, I used to do CryptoKitty trading and breeding with one of my friends. I don't know if he's in the audience right now, but MJ. And we had, yeah, there he is. We had so much fun with this. We had like little groups where we would breed our cats, trade our cats, look for rare attributes. And at some point, actually back in 2017, it completely congested the Ethereum network. It was hilarious. But since then, we've actually seen a lot more adoption, and you guys are probably very aware of it in terms of fashion and art. So there was a lot of use cases where digital artists were popping up. They were building digital art collections, a lot of them on OpenSea, Nifty Gateway. We also started seeing bigger brands hopping on board, and I've got some images up here actually from the Dolce & Gabbana platform called Uncrossed that was worked in partnership with Vogue, and this was one of the projects my team and I had the pleasure of actually consulting on. I had a meeting with Vogue in Paris, and I was like, I made it. But they actually launched this NFT platform for luxury goods, and it was very cool, but it was also completely outside of anything that I've ever experienced before, because I was sitting down at this meeting with these guys in Paris, and they were like, the same people that will spend $2 million on a pair of boots will spend $10 million, so let's pump it up. I was like, oh, geez, okay. So the images over here, actually the impossible tiara, the glass suit. The glass suit actually sold as an NFT for 600,000 euros. So it was, you guys can understand kind of where this is going. The hype was hypey. Next up, I just want to tell you a little bit more about some of the other artworks that were sold. So one of the most expensive artworks actually ever sold, the biggest NFTs. First of all, it was Beeple with a conceptual 3D artwork that he sold for $69 million. It was called 5,000 Days. Is it 5,000 Days? Yes, the first 5,000 days, where he took a collection of 5,000 different photos and he created this artwork. That artwork is now trading at $29 million. with the basic floor price. So there has been quite a big drop-off actually from the hype to now. There was also a larger sale after this in December 2021, also by Beeple, called The Merge. But this one was very, very different because actually it enabled all of the buyers to not just have one single artwork, but they were able to buy like a collection of NFTs, which started opening the doors to more dynamic versions of NFTs, which is something that we're also going to talk about a little bit later in terms of like future trends and what could happen next. I've dropped in a couple of other just fun ones there, just so you guys can see, because the internet can sometimes just be a little bit of a joke. NFTs were sometimes just a JPEG, but they're going a lot deeper now. So, current market trends and what's happening now. I want to tell you guys a little bit about kind of like the volume and hype. So after this, I'm going to go into a little bit about the NFT market cap. I want to talk a little bit more about brands that are using NFTs. So 2021, 2022 is kind of all happening around this time. This was the hype cycle. You saw brands like Starbucks, Nike, Adidas. They were all kind of getting in there. They were building virtual stores in the metaverse. They were going wild. And then the next thing that we're going to dive into, actually during the climate controversy kind of a section, we're going to start talking about blockchain diversity. So predominantly when NFTs popped up, it was mainly on the Ethereum chain. So any EVM compatible networks, it became easier, so we were able to start moving to like layer 2 solutions. And now we're also starting to see a lot more chains adopting NFTs as well and buying into different utility and use cases for them. So Solana is another big one where NFTs are very commonly traded. So I actually took this screenshot this morning, and it's funny because I adapted an old presentation of mine, and when I was looking at this presentation, the market cap was 1.8 billion back in 2021, and when I looked at it this morning, it's 22.4 billion. But then I asked ChatGPT, and it said 35.7, so now I'm not quite sure who to trust. But I thought that this was a really, really interesting chart to look at, because even though we're done with a hype cycle, we're still seeing a lot of demand coming in for NFTs. There's a lot more institutional NFTs being created, bear with me with this one, and there's also a lot more utility NFTs being created. So NFTs aren't just being used for fashion and for art, there's a lot more use cases that are coming up around it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about them now. So NFTs, back when they started, not just a JPEG, there were two main token standards that we were kind of looking at. There was the ERC 721, the ERC 115, and those were just like your basic NFTs or batch NFTs. Now, when we're looking at NFTs, there's another two. There's composable NFTs, and there's, I can't remember the last one, but that's fine. So let's talk about what NFTs are growing into, because I thought that this was really exciting. And actually, in the previous hackathon that I just hosted 2 weeks ago, ETH Cape Town, it was wild. We had some really cool projects being built, and one of them actually used dynamic NFTs for their project. So dynamic NFTs are NFTs that evolve based on conditions. And this is using what we call oracles. So oracles are things that basically plug into the blockchain to bring real-world data into what we are building. And these oracles can be used to actually plug in and change the status of a specific NFT. So like, let's say we have an NFT that's based on a sunny day weather. We connect it to a weather app. It's now a rainy day. NFT changes based on that data that's being fed in. Then you also have trigger NFTs. So trigger-based NFTs in the dynamic space are more around, like, let's say you have a time-based NFT. It's been on the blockchain for 10 days, now it changes into something else based on the time that has lapsed. So you have all of these different ways that NFTs still can now actually change, but based on specific factors that are still hard-coded into the smart contracts. The next is AI-generated NFTs, and I actually was a little confused. I'm like, can't NFTs and dynamic NFTs be the same thing? Yes and no. You can use AI to generate dynamic NFTs, but AI-generated NFTs are actually completely AI-created, specifically NFTs. So these are the ones that could maybe be used for generative art, or a variety of actually different use cases. And then the last one, which I think is actually more of a common one, is fractionalization. So fractionalization of ownership of, let's say, specifically high-end goods. I always use the Mona Lisa as an example because it's so far-fetched to me. You could put the NFT up as a NFT, or the Mona Lisa up as an NFT, and then everyone could basically buy in to have a piece of that NFT. So in that case, you own maybe 5% of the Mona Lisa, and how cool would that be? I don't know what the perks for that would be, but it would be pretty cool. Same can be done for property, so like fractionalized ownership of property. And with these type of progressions in NFT development and the technology that we're kind of seeing come through it, we're able to start expanding our thoughts around what it can be actually used for in the future. One of my favorite ones is actually gaming and in-game assets, because I feel like it will reshape the gaming economy, especially when we look at, let's say, creating cross-game marketplaces or assets inside of games that can be traded across different platforms. You start being able to create this economy or this market where gamers are able to not just like own and have their rare goods and their rare skins or swords or tools, or I'm not much of a gamer, my boyfriend is though, so he might be stoked on this. But then you're able to actually be able to monetize what you are building and being able to take it maybe even a step further and create this whole economy around gamers and this like cross-chain, cross-game marketplace. The next is music and entertainment. So there are a lot of artists that are actually already doing this. Kings of Leon was one that I thought was really, really interesting because they use their NFTs for their rights management, so you're actually able to buy the Kings of Leon album as an NFT. I think Grimes did this as well. So there's been a couple of instances where this is happening. And then the last is virtual real estate. And this one always makes me laugh a little bit because especially during the NFT hype, there was a whole lot of hype around, let's say, Decentraland. So Decentraland is like a virtual world where you can buy pieces of property next to celebrities, and they sold for like a lot of money. Like I wanted a house next to Snoop Dogg, somebody wanted a house next to Paris Hilton, like you could have that. So you could own like pieces of these virtual land, which starts opening up the gates to like a lot more sci-fi type things like virtual stores, these online. So Nike, for example, could have a virtual store in Decentraland next to Snoop Dogg's house. So there's all of these different weird things that you can start getting into there, but I'm not going to dive too deep into that. And that's actually the metaverse. So I actually thought that this was pretty cool. I've spoken about the metaverse quite a lot. For me, it's like a very vague concept. Some people are like, oh, it's Web 4, and I'm like, I don't know. There is like that understanding. So like, let's say, okay, Web 3 is kind of what we are all here for today. We are now heading towards decentralization. I'm a little bit worried that in the future, if they go into like Web 4, it heads back into decentralization or the metaverse or whatever you're going into next, where it's back into centralization. Like let's say Facebook owns the metaverse. Not fun. And then we need to start being more and more control of identity and ownership. So like we need to start thinking about more and more what we put on the blockchain. What is our data? What is our IP? Like what are we creating and how are we stamping that as being our own? Especially because right now anyone can copy and paste and do anything kind of like that you're working on. And the next would be interoperability. So with all of these chains that are popping up, all of these NFT standards, all of these different ways of proving your ownership and proving your IP ownership, can it be crossed and swapped across all of these different chains? Because you can't just have it on one chain now anymore, because it is starting to kind of decentralize even more in that sense. And cross-chain operability, we used to call it cross-atomic swaps, is becoming more and more commonplace as well. A couple of other, I thought, like more commerce-y and brand engagement-y use cases for NFTs. Loyalty programs. I think Starbucks actually implemented this. I don't think it did well. I think it's really hard kind of trying to get like a Starbucks kind of a normal client onto Web3 and then onto a NFT loyalty scheme. So I think that there's still too many steps in between to make this go completely mainstream, but it is something that people are actively working on, and I think visibility and attention from big brands like this is going to do wonders for the NFT space. Even if it's just starting up. People, like me, most people that even know about Web3, they know about NFTs, they probably heard about the Starbucks thing, there's a lot of hype still. And the next is ticketing. I actually think this is a pretty cool one because you can basically assign your ticket to your identity. There's a couple of projects that are working actively on this as well. For ETH Cape Town, we actually ran our entire platform through Lemonade Stand or Lemonade Social, which we also were able to then offer POAP, so proof of attendances, badges, so like being like, well done, you attended, which you then get to keep, and you can build up a collection of your proof of attendance. Environmental innovations. So back when I gave this presentation in 2021, somebody asked me a question. They were like, isn't this bad for the environment? Probably, but so is email. We are actively working on changing this. I mean, the whole industry is. We've moved from proof of work to proof of stake anyway, and on top of that, we're also moving now to more layer 2 solutions. So you don't have to run everything through Ethereum where the gas is probably high. You can run it on some other platform like Polygon or like Solana, for example. Like those are much, much faster. The environmental impact is a lot lower. And then there's also some really cool projects that are popping up around exactly this. So like using NFTs and eco-conscious initiatives to actually actively combat the carbon footprint of Web3. So I think that it's like a little bit of a give and take. I don't think it's anything more or less, and I think it's something that we are working to change. But what's next? And I think you guys have kind of been hearing this as I've been talking. There's a lot happening in the space, and it's not just about fashion. It's not just about art. I mean, it might have started about that, and it kind of got everyone's attention, which is pretty cool. But we are definitely seeing a trend of moving more towards utility. Like, how can this actually be used to help people? How can we actually use this as an underlying asset? I keep thinking as well, like imagine like one day you wake up, I actually saw this in a presentation, and the guy talks about putting on your AI Facebook glasses or whatever, and every tweet that you make, every photo that you post, anything that you put online basically goes on as an NFT and proves your ownership to that thought or that post or that thing, and that NFT kind of layer becomes the base layer underneath everything that we're doing on the blockchain or on AI or on VR, AR, all of those different technologies that are popping up right now. But the base level will basically be that proof of ownership that NFT is moving towards. Institutional adoption, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but like brands and businesses, industries are starting to integrate NFTs into their broader strategies, and this could be through ticketing, it could be through loyalty schemes, it could be through proof of attendance. Another really interesting one that I really like is proof of skills. So being able to prove that you have the verifications for the things that you're applying for, and we were doing that through interesting ways of doing soul-bound or human-bound tokens, soul-bound tokens. That was a one while back. It's a token that you can send one way and it only stays in that wallet. So there's a lot of different things that people are playing with, and I'm very excited about it. And then the last thing that I'm excited about is the actual collaborative opportunities with NFTs, because it's not in a silo. And because NFTs span across so many different verticals, so many different industries, I mean fashion, sports, all of these different marketplaces, gaming, there's so much room for all of these industries to collaborate and to connect and to build something cooler together. And for me, that really embodies the open source ethos of Web3 and what we're trying to achieve here. So to close off, no, I don't think NFTs are dead. And I do think that they have a lot of future. I just don't think it's going to be in the way that we are maybe used to or expecting. And yeah, I think that's it for me. If you have any questions, you're welcome to come and find me afterwards. But yeah.
We can we'll do one public question. Sorry, sir. Okay, let's go to the back. I'm sorry, we already have one over here. I apologize. No. I apologize. Sorry.
Open floor question.
Okay, we only have time for one question. Okay.
Thanks. Just because you wanted the walk, right? Do you think that we can actually use NFTs ever in real South African-based property transactions?
I think that would depend a lot on the regulatory frameworks that South Africa brings out next. I think to date they've been relatively supportive. There was an NFT auction a while back actually where I think it was Moment tokenized Nelson Mandela's, I think it was arrest warrant, and the person bought it and put it up in, I think it's on Robben Island, so he owns it, but you can still go and like see it and everything, so it opens up that opportunity, and I think a lot of the funding actually went to maintaining the display and the exhibition. So I think that it depends on the kind of support that you get from that. So that was my way of kind of explaining like the fractionalized ownership kind of a thing. But in terms of property deeds, there's a couple of projects that I'm talking to actively that are working on use cases specifically with that. It just becomes a little bit complicated. I mean, it depends on also if you're going into like timeshare of the property or actual like fractionalized ownership in terms of the title deed. So yeah, a little bit of a all over the place with that one, but it really does depend on regulation and where it goes.
Thank you so much, Devon. Appreciate that.
No problem. Thanks,
Devon
guys.
Krantz, everybody.